Hey guys, what's up? Richard here. In my last video, I talked about the importance of accepting a new culture in order to really learn its language, which may even be twice as important when it comes to Japanese, since culture is like a serious thing there. Now, while that's important, it's only one of three keys to suspiciously good Japanese, or any language for that matter. Today, I will reveal the two other keys which will allow you to skip the tragic struggle with learning a new language, which is what almost 100% of all people learning a new language have to deal with. And you're going to notice a rapid increase in your progress as you apply these strategies. A true fast track that's going to turn some heads around, guaranteed. Keeping your mind open and accepting the new culture is key number one. Watch the previous video if you've missed it. Link in the description. The second key is this. I see people being slow with the new language and not talk smoothly because they are thinking in their native tongue and then translating into another language. Not only does this violate key number one, but it's actually also incredibly sluggish because you're essentially doing two translations in your head. Idea, native language, the other language, and speaking. That's far too many steps for smooth conversation, especially because the step you're adding unnecessarily is the hardest one to do because it requires the most brain power. Aside from it being slow, it tires you out faster. Now, while working out your mind is great, exhausting yourself in ways that are on the lower spectrum of benefits is not. But Richard, that's great and all, but how am I supposed to not do that? It's natural to be translating things in your head when you're speaking another language. I hear you. Now consider this. At some point, when you were a baby learning to walk, it was unnatural for you to stand up. And yet you did it anyway, didn't you? And I know it's totally out there, but I have this sneaking suspicion you're pretty glad that you struggled through it. Luckily, this is actually much easier than learning to walk. All you have to do is start thinking in the new language. Every single word you learn, use it in your head, specifically without first thinking of the English word or whatever is your native tongue. Now, of course, this might be tricky for some at first, but just like learning to meditate may seem impossible at first, you'll gradually find that the more you do it, the more your mind will quiet down. And you will naturally start conjuring up the right words in the new language without ever slipping into your native tongue. Here's an example of how you might progress in Japanese, beginner level stuff. Let's say you learn the word for water in Japanese, mizu. You walk into your local store, the same one you've been to a million times before, and you see a bottle of water. You should think, mizu. Let's say you learn more. Now you can say, this is water. Koreva mizu desu. You're at the store again. And the first thing you should allow to pop up in your mind is, koreva mizu desu. And you do this for everything. Every word, every sentence. Every time there's an opportunity for you to practice the word in your head, you do it. Until little by little, you can have entire coherent thoughts about your daily life. And eventually, you'll end up thinking completely in Japanese. This is what will eliminate any unnecessary translations in your mind, causing you to effectively think, speak faster, and therefore allowing you to speak smoothly and naturally. Hopefully, you already recognize that this is simple. All you have to do is just do it. And the more you do it, the more easier and beneficial it gets. Until inevitably, one day, you're slinging those Japanese words, sentences, phrases, and idioms like that cool, slick gunslinger handling his six-shooter. Key number 3, feedback. Now, this is not the feedback in the usual sense of the word. You won't actually go and ask people, although you can and should do that. It's a wonderful thing to do. However, right now what I'm talking about is something slightly different. We all hear voices in our head. No, not some crazy voice telling us to do something bad. No crazy voices. Your own voice. When we think, there's usually a voice associated to that. Your own voice. However internally you perceive it to be. And you can hear it clearly. So as you practice key number 2, which basically includes practice of step number 1, because you're only speaking the Japanese you've learned to be natural sounding Japanese. You're not translating, guessing. In a way, you allow everything to come directly from your heart. You simply analyze how you sound. Yes, how you sound in your own head. You'll be surprised by how accurate your inner voice can be. Really notice how you sound. Consider if it really sounds clean and polished. Is something missing? How can you improve? These and similar questions you really should ask yourself and consider in order to move forward and start sounding awesome. You do the same thing as you speak out loud. Notice where you stutter, where your tongue gets tangled up, where your tonality is weak, where it's strong, where your accent is showing up, and where you sound perfect. And listen to the natives, how they pronounce it, and do your best to match their pronunciation. With the power of the internet, there's a bunch of places where you can hear native speakers pronounce specific words and syllables to help you along this step. For Japanese, these places can be Google Translate and jisho.org. These are the sites I've used pretty much since day one, although back then Google Translate was pretty horrible. Links in the description. Now, some of you will not be able to hear yourself or, be aware of how you actually sound, which can make this step a little more tricky than for other people. It's okay though, because some people just don't have their hearing developed in this kind of a way where they can hear themselves and their accent. Here are 2 ways to handle that, to remedy that. First, record yourself and listen to it. Actually, most people dislike hearing their voice. But if that's you, you gotta just muscle through it. Do it for the greater good. That is, you speaking incredible Japanese. That sounds plain awesome. So just do it. Don't be shy about it. You can totally do it in your own privacy. So seriously, just do it. Second, the more you listen to yourself, the more that hearing will get developed. And you'll hear yourself and your mistakes and your successes more clearly. It's a skill, it gets developed through practice. So practice. Even if you can't really tell anything from your voice and your recordings, in fact, especially if that's the case, days will pass by, weeks, maybe months, until one day you're going to be like, oh my God, I can hear it. It's such a valuable skill to develop. If you really want to master a new language, make sure to invest at least a little bit of time and effort into this, because it will pay off in abundance. This is what I call internal feedback. There's also external feedback, and that's simply watching the body language of the listener. If you see them listening to you intently, you're probably nailing it. In which case, hey, you're a legend. Great job, pat yourself on the back. However, if you see the blank face, you've probably messed something up. Now, it could be just that they just don't understand your point. It can happen, but if we're talking learning a new language, that's probably not the case. Just like listening to your own voice, watching other people and reading their body language is a skill that the more you do it, the better you get at it, to a point where you can immediately see where you've messed up and which specific word was off. And of course, you can just ask the other person what they did not understand. Now, I get it. This seems like the obvious and easiest way to do it, and sure, do it. But be warned, the Japanese people are often too nice to actually correct you. They actually think it's a little bit impolite to do that. And you might actually need to convince them that it's okay to correct you. So, yes, ask people for feedback and corrections. But be sure to develop your own inner and external feedback, because that's actually the faster and more reliable way to get more feedback virtually instantly. And if you can do this for one language, you can do this for any language. And this is how you can actually learn to speak a whole bunch of languages and sound absolutely excellent with each one. Because honestly, once you figure out how to learn a language, you can learn them all. Of course, it's a big hassle to go about 3 or 4 languages, trust me. But it's doable. And those who did so successfully, I can virtually guarantee you that they have, at least unconsciously, used all of these 3 keys to open that door to that possibility. And if they can use it to speak some 9 languages, just imagine what it can do for you with only 1 language. Alright, those were the 3 keys to speaking silky smooth Japanese or any language. And here's a quick summary to make this even more actionable for you. Here are the 3 important things to keep in mind as you learn and master any language. Number 1, cultural expectations and assumptions. Don't force your culture on their language, because it will fundamentally change it and it ceases to be that language. It becomes this sort of a hybrid that might be fun to speak, but it's not actually too great to communicate clearly or effectively in. Accept their culture enough so that you speak the new language and sound like a native. Key number 2, translation process. Don't think in your language and translate it to the new one in your head. Eliminate the first step completely. Only think in the new language. Even if you just know a few words, use those few words. Build up gradually. Your ability to talk natural sounding Japanese or whatever it might be will go beyond your expectations rapidly, if only you take the time to nurture this. Key number 3, feedback, internal and external. Listen to yourself in your head when you speak out loud, record yourself, and notice where you're messing up and where you're already sounding great. Continue to improve. Watch other people carefully. Notice when they are listening intently and when you're getting the blank face. That's it. It's really not that difficult, and it pays off. Oh boy, does it pay off. Oh, and one more thing. Realize that learning a language takes time, so don't be too hard on yourself. Always look for ways to improve, but appreciate your progress and what you can already do as you continue to improve. That's why it's important to make your studies fun, because fun will make you come back and do more and continue to improve even faster. If it's a chore, you might poison the well you want to drink from. So don't. Enjoy it. It should be enjoyable if you want to naturally develop these 3 keys. Then check out my courses on my website. It's not only the best way to support me to create more content, but it's absolutely the best way to support your ability to master basic Japanese conversation in the shortest time possible. So go ahead, start your Japanese journey today and build a foundation that will help you start eliminating those pesky subtitles in your favorite anime shows, help you get around Japan, or who knows, maybe even score that cute Japanese girlfriend you always wanted. All I will ever ask of you is to take just one step at a time. And how easy will it be for you to arrive at your goals when that's all you have to do? And believe me, you'll be glad you did. Remember to smash that like button and subscribe as you start taking your Japanese to the next level now. And I'll see you in the next video.